Let's move on to the Falcons and the Vikings. I know a lot of people want to talk about this for a couple of different reasons. Certainly, we're going to get to McCarthy and the Vikings side of things, but we're also going to give kudos to what the Falcons were able to do in bouncing back. So Atlanta wins this game in Minnesota. Good for them to get a win on the road in prime time. 22-6 was the final score there for the Atlanta Falcons. Their top 5 graded players in this game: linebacker Divine Diablo with an 89.3, center Ryan Newsill with an 83.6, guard Chris Lidstrom with a 73.6, running back Bijan Robinson with a 72.1, and then edge rusher Zach Harrison with a 71.0. Quarterback Michael Penix in this one. It wasn't a perfect game, but it was certainly good enough for him, 66.6. And then on Minnesota's side of things, safety Theo Jackson, the top man on the list, with just a 72.9. I think that's a little bit of an encapsulation of how things went for the Minnesota Vikings. It just wasn't a great day on either side of the ball for your top graded player to only be at a 72.9. Offensive tackle Brian O'Neill with a 71.5. Running back Jordan Mason a 70.7. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson a 70.6. And then tight end TJ Hawkinson with a 70.6 as well. JJ McCarthy in this one a 49.4. And Dalton, it just, as we get to your stats that told the story, I'm just looking at the Vikings top 5 there, and there were even a couple other players that were right around that 70 mark. And it just felt like that's what the game was for Minnesota, where there were a lot of players who were playing fine, but on either side of the ball, no one really broke out. No one was that impact player they really needed them to be, whether it was in the receiving game or the offensive line or the pass rushing, like whatever it was, they just didn't get the impact plays last night. And, wrap that into how McCarthy played, and you get to scoring 6 points in this game.
Yeah, and this could have been a lot worse. 22-6 is really not indicative when you look at the numbers of how dominant the Falcons were in this game. The only reason this game was this close is that the Falcons went 1 for 5 in the red zone, and Drake London fumbled inside the Vikings 30. This game, Trev, could have been like 45-6.
Yeah.
It really could have. This could have gotten ugly. I do like from the Falcons' perspective that after a week last week against Tampa where they really asked Michael Penix to try to carry them to a win because they didn't run the football well, they got back to the bread and butter with Bijan Robinson, with Tyler Algier, and this run game. And to me, as far as, before we get to any storylines about J.J. McCarthy, and the Vikings have a lot of injuries too. A couple, obviously Christian Darrisaw didn't play again. Ryan Kelly got hurt during this game. There's several injuries on defense, guys that were missing big-time players. But I think within this game, it's about one team that could run the ball and take it out of their quarterback's hands, and another that couldn't. The rushing yards, 218 to 78, Atlanta. The Falcons had the ball for 36 and a half minutes, and as a result of Minnesota not being able to run the ball, they had to ask McCarthy to win the game. They lose the turnover battle 4-1, and it goes from there, right? So I think the Falcons getting back to their bread and butter and being able to be the team that ran the ball and take it out of their quarterback's hands, that's the reason they won this game, and it could have been a lot worse if they had just executed in the red zone as well.
Yeah, I mean, you feel really good about handing the ball off to a guy like Bijan Robinson because he could do anything for you, right? So it's not like it's I feel like some teams might begrudgingly hand the ball off because they know they need to do it, because you have to stay balanced. You have to make things easier for you. You have to help yourself out on early down and distances. Like, it's just a way to really control the clock, keep things going, and to stay balanced in a certain way. And again, not that we're saying that balance is 50-50, but balance is whatever your offensive identity is and whatever formula of running the ball goes into that. But it's easy for the Falcons, I think, to just think about handing the ball off to one of their best offensive playmakers in the backfield in Bijan Robinson. So he was fantastic. To me, the stat that told the story, I initially thought that I was going to write about the Vikings offensive line, right? Because I'm watching that game last night, and sack after sack after sack after sack. And it's Falcons defensive line that, they infused a lot of young talent, some different talent in there over the last 2 years, specifically this past offseason. So it was great to see the fruits of that. And I don't mean to take anything away from the Falcons, but I was like, holy cow. I mean, this Falcons defensive line, for them to have this much backfield production, I mean, this has got to be on Minnesota's offensive line, right? They didn't have Darrisaw. You mentioned they didn't have Ryan Kelly when he went out with a concussion. But when you looked at the Vikings offensive line, 10 pressures, okay, that's a good amount of pressures, but it's not like that was far and away the most in the NFL. Like, it was just 10th in the NFL, the 10th most pressures given up. And obviously, you don't want to be in the top 10 in pressures given up, but it's not like that was catastrophic. And I did some further digging on it. Only 2 of those pressures came in less than 2 seconds. So I'm watching this game live, and I'm thinking McCarthy's got no chance on some of these. I'm thinking the offensive line's blowing the assignments, or the blitz is just coming from a different way, whatever. They only had 2 plays where the pressure that they gave up out of 10 were within the first 2 seconds. And so, okay, well then what was McCarthy's pressure to sack ratio? 50%. 50%. That's the highest in the NFL. So that's a major issue for this team right now. Is not only were they down Darisaw, not only were they down Ryan Kelly, not only could the offensive line be better, but J.J. McCarthy is converting those pressures into sacks himself by either holding onto the ball too long, not getting out of the pocket, or whatever it is. Because if the offensive line, for as much as you don't want them to give up a pressure, if they're not giving up a pressure within the first 2 seconds, your quarterback at least has a chance to do something, right? Avoid it a little bit, get the ball out of his hands, do something. And it wasn't an overwhelming amount that they were giving up those early pressures. So instead, yes, I think that the offensive line needs to play better. But J.J. McCarthy, part of what the issue is now for him is seeing the field as fast as he needs to. If you take out that fourth quarter that they played last week against the Chicago Bears, they have the lowest EPA per play by a mile of any team in the NFL. And that, to me, starts with McCarthy's got to figure out how to not take as many sacks. You cannot convert the other team's pressures into them getting sacks at a 50% clip. That is way too high. That will be a killer for your offense. And obviously, it's why they're in the bottom of the NFL when it comes to EPA per play outside of that fourth quarter that they played against the Chicago Bears. So, to me, that was really the stat that told the story, is how much McCarthy is letting pressures turn into sacks for them 2 games into the season.
Yeah, even with the injuries and without Christian Darisaw on their offensive line, they're 11th in pass blocking grades so far. And J.J. McCarthy somehow now has taken 9 sacks through 2 games. And you look in this game, you speak to the indecision and the field vision, 3.3 average time to throw. It's way too long for anybody. That's too long for even the longer time to throw guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, right? So McCarthy's got to get rid of the football. He's got to see it pre-snap quicker. And I think, at this point, we've seen a guy he's made his first 2 NFL starts. He's looked a little bit rattled. He has. And I think the one thing in that Bears game is there was a pretty healthy cutoff point after the third quarter. I think Kevin O'Connell went to him and said, look, we're down 11 points. Let it rip, or we're going to lose anyway. This game, he just never let it rip, except for, the end of the half throw before the end of the first half to Justin Jefferson that set him up for a field goal. That throw made you feel like, okay, he's going to find it now. He's going to let it rip now. But there was just never that air of confidence around him in this game. He wasn't seeing it properly. And credit to the Falcons defense, and we saw this too much last year. They finished these plays with 6 sacks. Last year, they didn't finish those plays. They might have gotten pressure, and then the quarterback would escape the pocket and make a play. They actually finished plays this year, or in this game, I should say, the Falcons did. So there's a long way to go with this Vikings offense for sure.
Yeah, most impressive and most disappointing for you.
Bijan Robinson, easy. Best player on the field. He is still the Falcons' best player.
Yep.
I think the fact that they remembered that this week. Last week, they only ran the ball 33% of the time in a close game with the Bucs. This week, 60% of the time. So you mentioned balance. It doesn't have to be 50-50.
It's easier when you're up, obviously.
It's easier when you're up, but from the very beginning of this game, this was the plan. 81.2 rushing grade, 143 yards on the ground, 12 missed tackles on the ground with 4 explosive runs. And then Tyler Algier coming in as the physical presence in the fourth quarter. He was really good too. Just the entire ability of the Falcons to get back to their bread and butter and run the ball with these 2 guys and control the pace of this game. That's what won them this football game. And I just have down as my most disappointing J.J. McCarthy just because it wasn't good. And you mentioned it. 8 quarters in, we've only seen one good one. It's got to get more consistent. They got to get off to better starts. Last year, the Vikings were a top 3 offense in football in the first quarter of games. That's not happening right now. They have to play better early on with the scripted plays.
For me, my most impressive is the Falcons rookies. I mean, what a day for the 2025 draft class for Terry Fontenot, their general manager. Xavier Watts got an interception, and I highlighted last week against the Buccaneers how he almost had 2. Like, he read 2 of those Baker Mayfield passes very well. One of them was the Emeka Egbuka front pylon touchdown where it was just barely over his fingertips. If he was 6'7", then he probably would have intercepted that pass, but it just went just over his hands. And then there was another one right over in the middle of the field where he actually read it so well. He actually ran past where he should have, and Baker it was an incompletion, but he would have been right there for the interception. Now he actually gets an interception in this game. How phenomenal did Billy Bowman Jr. look as well? Just an absolute ball hawk, somebody who could play as a free safety, a strong safety, a nickel defender for you. He got a sack, or he got an interception. Jalen Walker got a full sack. James Pierce Jr. got a half a sack in this one. So great return for them in this game to see those rookies be able to shine. And then the most disappointing for me was just the Falcons have to finish better in the red zone. It really was. It was good to see, hey, let's get some confidence for their new kicker, Romo. So I guess it wasn't the worst thing in the world because now their kicker probably has a little bit of confidence, which is important after making the change from Younghoe Koo. But certainly anytime you go 1 for 5 in the red zone, there's not many football games that you win when you go 1 for 5 in the red zone. So that was just disappointing.
And credit to them, they did, right, with their defense, with their run game. So I think, obviously, that's the first thing that their offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson's going to talk about. Hey, if we finish drives, we can put up 30, 40, 45 on these teams, right? So I think it's something to look forward to with the Falcons, see how Penix in the passing game especially gets better in the red zone with those tighter windows. And look, the Vikings are a hard team to throw vertically on, so there wasn't a ton of explosive plays down the field. So I think they are going to get better because the way that they got back to running the football and having that balance is really encouraging.
Jordan in the chat, I'm just seeing this comment before we go on to the next game. He's saying after seeing Alex Singleton's grade, the linebacker for the Denver Broncos, after seeing Alex Singleton's grade, I have zero trust in PFF. He single-handedly allowed almost every big play. Do you guys review the game? Do you guys review the games with your eyes open or not? Alex Singleton had a 48.4 coverage grade. That's not good. I don't really know what you would want. His run defense grades are better just because he's a better run defender.
Yeah.
And yeah, his coverage grade was bad. 48.4 is one of the lowest coverage grades that you have for anybody during the week. So I don't really understand that one, Jordan. But we're going to get to the Colts and Broncos. Not right now, but we're going to get to that point. And that's honestly one of my favorite games that we're going to get to review here this week.